right, let's go ahead and get started. I hope everybody had a great lunch and did some networking. I'm going to welcome up to the stage Zeeshan and Sean. The interesting thing, they are both former TraceLinkers, and they went on to CosmoTrace. They've been helping TraceLink customers or working with TraceLink for quite a number of years to solve some of the problems. They specialize in regulatory compliance like DSCSA and helping customers with their serialization requirements. So welcome, guys, and we're excited to hear from you.
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Paul said, I hope you guys had a good lunch. So I'll just do quick introductions, and then I'll hand over to Sean. So I am Zeeshan Ahmed. I'm the founder and CEO of CosmoTrace, and I'm based out of London. So we are a consulting and a services company, primarily focused on track and trace and serialization. We are headquartered in the UK, and we have regional offices in the US, Middle East, and India. Like Paul mentioned again, we've been supporting a lot of customers, manufacturers, CMOs, 3PLs, and distributors with their serialization journey, not just DSCSA, not just US, but all the other markets as well. So now I'll hand over to Sean before we talk about the topic.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Boland. I am a manager of professional services in the US for CosmoTrace. Today, we're going to be sharing some insights on DSCSA compliance, the impact on distribution and logistics, as well as the role of operational excellence. So let's just take a little step back. I think everybody's familiar with these dates and times and things, but it all began with the Digital Drug Supply Chain Security Act. This year is a milestone year in that at the end of this upcoming month, manufacturers and repackagers need to start sending EPCIS information. Towards the end of summer, the wholesalers will next be in line to start sending EPCIS information. Then in November, as Dan had mentioned earlier today's session, that we've got distributors under 25 pharmacist technicians. Their deadline is November 27th of 2025, and then the smaller distributors, less than 25 pharmacist technicians, will be in 2026. So now is when we can all take a big collective sigh of relief that this is all over and everything's going to be great going forward, right? So actually the journey continues in this now operational enforcement phase. And so some of the topics that we're going to talk about is challenges in achieving seamless traceability and verification. So the first thing is data quality and accuracy. So I think we've heard this a couple times today and yesterday over the course, is that accurate transaction data is the backbone of DSCSA compliance. Inaccurate GLNs, SGLNs, incorrect SGLNs, incorrect lot numbers, or even mismatched GTINs can halt the verification process and create major disruptions. Sometimes the error really isn't an error. Things that were valid in EPCIS originally have now been, say, need to be corrected in 1.1 and 1.2. Expired GTINs is another example. And so these examples are to give you an idea about just how the system is impacted by inaccurate data. So one of the things that that is something that we found successful at CosmoTrace is that there needs to always be a continuous validation of those GLNs and all of that data that you get, product master data. So we've worked with customers and we've set up and instituted a validation process for the data that they receive coming in. So we also work closely with them to identify how specific issues in their system will impact that incorrect data so that they know that this is actually the reason for that. And then ask them also to be proactive, which we'll talk about later on, and how they can actually head off any potential issues going forward. Readiness, don't want to ask for a show of hands, but I'm sure all of us have come across suppliers, other parts of the supply chain entities who are still not ready. Some of them actually are still setting up their systems. Some of them are in the process of testing. Some of them are just kind of radio silent when we reach out to them. So readiness is still widespread in the industry. Wholesalers that I work with are reporting that suppliers are either sending legacy data without required data or haven't fully set up their civilization systems. The results can be gaps in traceability. So we've, to help support our partners, we've worked with them to help establish direct contacts during the onboarding process, differentiating between who actually is the operations person and who actually is the regulatory person, and that to also work with their trade partners, even when it's challenging to get a response, use other channels, use maybe other members of your supply chain network to get contacts there. The other thing we have here is consistency and reliability. So the next one is then product ownership. So product ownership, we've been finding, again, part of this product validation and this data validation is who actually is the owner of the product. Sometimes when we're working with the supplier, it might be a global organization and they're not quite sure who actually is the rightful owner. Sometimes when we're working with wholesalers who have private label, they might find out that they thought they were the owner, but maybe it was a case where the CMO never released ownership to them, and that during this verification process, we actually uncovered that. So again, working with them to be tight with their suppliers, make sure that to help them in the case that they don't know who actually the ownership is, to find out, maybe do an outreach to actually who is listed on the product as the owner, and to see if this can be corrected. And then resource constraints. So right now we've got teams that are sort of being stretched thin. They've got their daily work that they're doing as well as this compliance. So also they're looking for some sort of support with this, and they're looking for folks who are able to step in on a temporary basis to help. They need folks who can show up who have industry experience and DSCSA knowledge with that. It might not be long-term, but they need these to handle the peaks that they're experiencing right now. And then finally, market regulatory requirements. Sometimes an organization that has been selling directly into the US has decided that they want to sell into the EU, but there might not be members of that team who actually are familiar with those regulatory requirements. So again, there's an opportunity there for resources to actually come on board on a temporary basis to get them through this part, or to help them navigate as they're working in that new market that they want to sell into. Okay. So the next question, the next slide here is process standardization, ensuring accuracy and data exchange. So consistency and reliability. So let's start with this one, consistency and reliability. We try to standardize the process across all departments and systems so we can create a shared understanding. I think this morning with Arabundo, when they had the video about them having a sit down with other members of their organization, CosmoTrace, we do strongly recommend that they have this outreach to your internal organization. So we've suggested, and in other cases, work with them to implement cross-functional teams under a unified data handling framework so that they ensure that the decisions are made by the right roles using accurate and consistent data. We've also encouraged our clients to develop and adopt PRPs, periodic review process, sort of like continuous improvement, as well as PRQs, periodic review qualifications. And this is just to make sure that the system that you set up, whether it was in 2024 or in 2015, is actually meeting your needs, and the data in there is still valid and accurate. Improved data quality. So standardization also plays a critical role in improving data quality. If we can establish clear rules around how data is collected, stored, transferred, and maintained, we're able to ensure that it's accurate, complete, usable, and up to date. This is particularly important when we're moving towards a data-driven decision matrix. The integrity of the data is paramount. So at CosmoTrace, we've helped clients to build and enforce these standardized data policies, resulting in better insight, generating more effective performance tracking. And then we've got scalability. So as organizations grow, scalability becomes a major concern. So without a standardized process, expansion often leads to uncertainty as to who is doing what. So when the processes are standardized and the roles are clearly defined within those processes, new teams who come on board can easily adopt existing workflows, avoiding duplication or gaps in who actually is responsible. Okay. And then we've got enhanced clients and security. So by making sure that the partners that we work with have developed roles, there's no mistake as to who is responsible for what in the system. It'll also help eliminate mistakes or updates to data that shouldn't have been updated with these roles, thereby having a clear documented procedure that shows what these roles do, what they have access to, what they don't have access to. And then finally, continuous improvement. Again, it's instilling this process of continuously looking at your system, making sure that it's up to date, making sure that you're able to adapt to the changes of your business, as well as keeping up with the current trends. So exception handling, addressing errors proactively. So overage, underage, conflicts, and shipments. This is very common, either overage or underage conflicts and shipments. These occur when the physical product count doesn't match the serialized data shared via the EPCIS. Often it's due to either missing or incorrect EPCIS information, or in some cases, products being shipped without any serialization at all. So we've addressed this at CosmoTrace by working with customers to trace discrepancies and reconcile shipment data in real time, helping avoid downstream verification failures. And then the next one is data missing or incorrect in EPCIS files. So another major issue is missing or incorrect data within EPCIS files. We found that there's a need for control points or checks within the L3 to L4 system sometimes. This is particularly common with legacy products that were never serialized, or where serialization was not properly implemented due to existing ERPs or WMSs. And then, let's see, we've got the final one here is files, timestamp issues. That's the next one. So timestamp issues. We've worked with customers who've had these issues where it appeared that the shipping and aggregation times were conflicting and were not being able to be received. So it was a sort of a two-prong approach that we had to that at CosmoTrace. First was actually to update and reprocess the files. The second was to get to the root cause of why that actually was happening. It's very easy to say, okay, these might have just been a couple of handful of files, just reprocess them. But if you're not getting to the root of the issue, that is just going to be a long-term problem that you're going to have more resources spending their time on. So even if it takes the time to actually fix that, to paraphrase John, to paraphrase him, you want to fix that right now as opposed to just keep triaging it and fixing those files, because it's going to cost you more in the long run. Okay. So we actually at CosmoTrace had determined what the cause was. We actually then made a recommendation to them in their system on how they can actually fix that. They were very appreciative of that. And even though it did take some time to investigate and get that reconciled, that's an issue that no longer exists for them. And then finally, we've got files rejected by trade partners. So those can, most likely are due to maybe either incorrect data, and by working with customers to actually fix that EPCIS information, or work with customers to change the GLNs to make that validation of those that they're correct, we were able to solve that. Okay. So I've talked about a lot of things that CosmoTrace has done and recommendations and things like that. So I just wanted to sort of bundle that all up to show you that these were all parts of the services that we had. So we've got project management, technical services, new business partner onboarding. So we onboard CMOs, MHAs, distributors for all markets that are serializing. A validation of connection with business partners and local authorities. So again, validation services. We do cross-country compliance support, EU, FMD. We do DSCSA, Russia, the Gulf, Near East, and Brazil. And then end-to-end serialized operations process gap analysis. That's where we actually go to customers who might have been set up a couple of years ago, and they're looking to see if there's anything that they need to do to their system to keep it update or actually to bring it forward. Is there anything that we see in that? So part of that whole process is actually going on site and reviewing their end-to-end processes and then identifying where those gaps are and then providing recommendations on how they can bridge those gaps. US DSCSA exception management, a service that we offer as well as serialization process SOPs and documentation. One of the questions we get all the time is, when should the serialization SOPs start? When should we start developing those? And I would say as soon as the design document is solidified, I would use that as what you use to develop your SOPs, at least the draft of those. You might find some things maybe during testing later on, but that's actually what you would use to define those SOPs. And then flexible staffing solutions, on-site, off-site support for daily operations. So again, if you were going into a different market, it's not typically your own, you need some help with that, but you need someone who actually is familiar with that. Not only familiar with that, but has the experience of actually shipping product into that. Okay. So the takeaways. The takeaways to this are build strong partner networks to boost transactional efficiency. So to truly optimize supply chain performance, we need strong, reliable partner networks. These relationships go beyond compliance. They're about creating an ecosystem. We've heard that term over the last couple of days, where information flows smoothly and transactions are processed without delays. By investing time in aligning systems, again, if you commit the time to this, by doing that, in aligning systems, expectations, and responsibilities with our partners, we significantly reduce friction and boost efficiency across the board. And we've seen this firsthand, how actually we can formalize these relationships and open direct lines of communication that can prevent major issues before they even arise. Develop and maintain operational excellence. So operational excellence isn't a one-time initiative. It's a continuous mindset. It means creating a culture where every process is designed, documented, and regularly evaluated for improvement. We want teams not only to meet the regulatory requirements, but we want them to run smoothly, adapt quickly, and support the overall business strategy. That's why at CosmoTrace, we embed operational excellence into everything we do, from training to technology integration, so it becomes part of the customer's DNA. Proactive managed data. So again, proactivity is the key. Instead of reacting to issues, instead of being reactive, you be proactive. We need to anticipate and address them early. So again, this means ensuring the data is accurate, accessible, systems are integrated and monitored, and resources, both the people and the tools, are aligned and empowered. So again, we've had success with this as CosmoTrace by helping our customers conduct readiness assessments and system audits that identify potential gaps before they even turn into operational risk. And then document and standardize exception management. So exception management should never be ad hoc. When a problem arises, whether it's a data mismatch, a verification issue, we need a clear, repeatable process to resolve it. So the more that we can boil down and document and standardize how the exceptions are handled, the quicker it will be to not only address them, but also provide data to figure out what the root cause is of those actions. Again, it's always fix the issue and then find out what the issue is with this, so it doesn't happen again. Let's see. So takeaways and a challenge. So the challenge, build strong partner networks to boost transactional efficiency. So as far as that goes with the challenge to everyone out there is we've spent all this time, effort, and money into becoming DSCSA compliant. But is there processes that we've learned in order to be compliant that can then be expanded and filtered out into our own organizations. So when we say build stronger partner networks, treat other departments in your organization as partners, form those relationships. Again, it's about creating that ecosystem where information flows smoothly and transactions are processed without delay. By investing time in aligning systems and responsibilities with our partners, we can significantly reduce friction and boost efficiency across the board. So in this case, it would be maybe reaching out to finance about POs and building relationships. Maybe it's reaching out to the IT group to make sure if there's any system upgrades happening, they don't interfere with the operation of the system. Develop and maintain operational excellence. So again, repeat that operational excellence is not a one-time initiative. It's something that should be repeated and done over and over again. It means that creating a culture that you have where every process is designed, documented, and regularly evaluated for improvement. So if that has to do with returns, if that has to do with interacting over invoices, and you're interacting with the accounting department or finance, that there's a process in place that documents who has the responsibility of what, and that it's repeatable, and that even more important is that you do meet from time to time to make sure that everything is working as it should be and expectations are being met. That's why, as I had said earlier, that we do treat that very serious, and we embed that operational excellence into everything we do on that. And we've got proactive managed data systems and resources effectively. Again, it's that whole process of internally meeting with different departments, making sure that they're getting the data that you need, that you are offering them, you're getting the data from them, and making sure that both of you are working. Again, these roles that we talked about that we set up in the system, there's also roles in these transactions with, say, the accounting department, that they understand what their role is and they understand what your role is. And then finally, the document and standardization of exception management. For that is, just to make sure that when we're doing these exceptions and we're interacting with other members in the organization, that we are keeping this alignment on what exactly we're doing and how we're handling these, and if these are proper. Okay. All right. And I think that is it. Any questions that anyone has?
Yeah, we have one over here.
So I have a very specific question. You mentioned about reconciliation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with what systems do you usually connect to do the reconciliation? At what level do you do it? Because in our case, we connect with our ERP and we validate at quantity level, right? I can't say if each has been mixed between two different deliveries or two different cases. I can't find that out. So at what level do you do that reconciliation, and how do you find that out, if you can?
So, at what level? You would need to first back up from that and say that process of reconciliation, where should it happen? Should it happen in the TraceLink system? Should it happen in the ERP system? And then to work, if you're going to say that it's going to happen in that ERP system, in what manner is that reconciliation going to be performed? So the specifics of actually, who does that is important. But as long as the more important thing is to actually have that process in place so that you're not saying, you've got to document it so that the next time it happens, you're not saying, okay, did I go to the ERP system, or do I do it, or do I do it in TraceLink, that kind of a thing? You actually have that all fleshed out and documented. You have the parties involved, those who are responsible for the ERP system. You have that involved as well to determine what the best course of action is with that, and then you document it. Does that make sense? So it's not so much as me telling me, oh, you would need to always go to the ERP system. It's as an organization, you would need to say, here's how we're going to do this, and then we're going to document it, and it's done this way. And then if you find that that is not the method to do it, you then document what the new process would be, so that it is something that you've got on file, that it's incorporated into your procedures, as this is where you go to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So So again, you still compare just the quantity with ERP, right? ERP doesn't have any serials in it. It just says, okay, of this NDC you shipped 60,000 units, right? And then you just compare with TraceLink saying, okay, 60,000 serials have been transmitted. That's your only reconciliation point, right? I just want to confirm that if there are any other viewpoints that you can reconcile with.
No, I think that would be it. That would be it.
Other questions? Oh, all right.
Again, another specific question. Imagine we have a shortage, and a customer has said that you were supposed to send us 10, we only got 7. Here are the serial numbers for all the 7 that we got. We go back to our 3PL, they check, the cycle count is the same. They don't do cycle counts based on serial numbers, they just do cycle counts based on batch numbers. So we don't know where these 3 went. What do you do with those serial numbers?
So not to sound like the same answer to the previous question, but that would be a gap in your process then. So you would need to determine what exactly is the process and the procedure for that is. What would you do next? That's where you would need to meet with the stakeholders and say, all right, whose responsibility would it be? What would be the timing involved in this? How long, does either party A have to reconcile this? How long does party B have to wait for this type of a thing? So again, it's more about the process that you have, so that you wouldn't be asking that question because you'd say, okay, I need to go to this work instruction, or I need to go to this particular process.
No, so that is not my question.
Okay.
So we agreed there is a shortage.
Yep.
Send the customer 3 extra
Yep.
to reconcile. All good. I'm only concerned about what is the right process to keep, or what is the status should we keep these 3 serial barcodes in? It cannot be decommissioned because it's a valid serial barcode.
Mm-hmm.
What should we be doing with those? The rest of the processes are all good.
Yep.
But what is it that you do with these serial numbers, the 3 that went missing, and we can't trace it? What do you do with that?
So again, I don't want to go back to saying the same thing over, but it would be what your determination would be on how you as an organization would handle that.
We don't have anything to do with that. This is why I'm asking. What I'm open to take suggestions on what you do.
Right.
So I think we probably have use cases like that with our team, the exception management team. So we will have to have a discussion about that.
Hey, Sean, thank you for the great insights.
Yep.
I'm just curious to know if you've seen any trends around the exceptions in terms of if you see one exception type more frequent than others, or if you're seeing certain exceptions that take longer to resolve than others.
So let me just pick the piece about the time it takes to correct those, or the time to get a response from those with the exceptions. Again, it goes back to the process, what the expectation is of when you report this exception, depending on who you're dealing with. Do you have that agreement sort of in place on how exactly you're handling these? But I mean, we've seen, again, depending on who we've actually worked with, we had seen the timestamp issues. We've seen overages, unders.
Product there, but no data.
Yep.
I think that's a common one.
Yep.
And then, Sean said, timestamp issues. And again, I think these are the 2 major ones that we see a lot of times.
And sometimes if you're a wholesaler and you reach out to your upstream supplier and they say, well, there's legacy data, there's not that. So then the wholesaler is put in the position of well, I'm compliant and I want to remain compliant. So how am I able to then send that product downstream, without any, it's, the non-enforcement period is still in effect. We're coming up very close to where it's, it's going to be enforceable. So run into situations like that as well, where wholesalers are sort of caught because they're receiving a legacy product. And sometimes it might be the same product. Sometimes it shows up with a serial number. Sometimes it doesn't show up in the file with that. So with them, then it's a decision, how do they want to handle that? And again, documenting what that process is so they have a standard process in place for that.
Can you speak to some of the root causes you
So at a high level, it was the aggregation actually had not completed before the shipping was done. So it was a situation that required a deeper investigation into that, and then the proposal of a solution that led to a minor adjustment in the aggregation time and the ship time. That was very minor, but its impact was major. So.
Okay, let's transition to our next speakers. Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
for presenting.